Here we are.
Yeah, here we are. And September, it's hitting differently. Actually, we're at the almost at the end of September, which is
Yeah.
um wild. And um Kat, I saw you post about Suicide Prevention Month some weeks ago now. And I reached out because I was like, this is hitting differently for me. Could we have a conversation about it? And I recognize there is a smile on my face. And even as I sit here, I'm thinking, this is not a smiling situation, but I don't really know how else to, show
To
up.
behave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we were just
Yeah.
talking about like what conversation could we have together and share that could have any, help or impact, especially as we think about this. And I love what you said. Let's talk about the humanity of it all, that we are human. Um, I lost my brother to suicide 6 months ago. And, I've shared that I lost him, but I don't often add that suicide part to it
Yeah.
because it adds a whole nother level, maybe like 20 levels and
So
different
many
people.
levels that we don't even recognize, to your point, in that
Yeah.
moment.
And so many questions that will never actually get answered,
Yeah.
from all the sides of the story. And even parts of the story that are like, we don't think it was. So, the humanity of what Suicide Prevention Month brings up in our lives, and um, you know, there's so many like, if I showed up differently 5, 10, 20 years ago, would the outcome be different? And we can't answer that. So here we are because we care about the people in our lives and we know that
Yeah.
this is real. And Kat, you give me courage, frankly. So,
I love you, sis. This is not, and I just really appreciate your courage. And, you know, we, we've been on this learning and growing journey together. And, I shared with you that at my birthday party with I shared my birthday with six of my family members. We obviously know what my family was doing during that time period. And, yeah, we deal with life with humor, right? When things are like starting to hit our heart. And one of my husband's best friends asked me some questions about, how was I dealing with a fall that I had during my party? And because my reaction was very calm, I did feel like I was going to throw up, and I was like super calm. And he's, I said, well, I've had coaching, I've had spiritual direction and therapy, and he zoomed in on what I was talking about and asked me about, why did I do those things? And, you and I have had conversations about, the power of vulnerability and the power of sharing where we're sitting emotionally with others. And, I said, I did therapy for this and coaching for that. And yeah, and I did this specific modality because I was suicidal. And then I walked away. Yes. I mean, I said it very frank. I wasn't like jovial. But when you get to a space of, and I told you I lost my brother and my mom, and even though it was death by harming the body over years, harming the body and not caring for the human, which is what we're talking about, whether it's an instant in time where you make a choice, where I in the past did, and luckily taking a whole bottle of medication and then ending up in the hospital. And obviously, I was given another day, where our siblings were not given another day. Um, it was really difficult for me with my own mental health and journey, and with my brother after his passing, that I didn't go to the what you said, I could have showed up differently. I was really angry, and that I didn't want to share with everyone what happened to him, because the same thing happened with my mom. And one of my other siblings, who's 29, he was just found unresponsive and he lived. So it's all these different things of, like, we feel like we have so much power over ourselves and others, and we don't. What we
Yeah.
can do is like see the human, take off all the titles
Yeah.
after we care for ourselves, and we're that I think that's the only thing that gave me more agency to say, oh, okay, I showed up for my brother and my mom, and I'm showing up for my current sibling who's struggling and may not make it. He may not live. It's a choice, and all we can do is take a breath,
Yeah.
lean into each other, and say, well, what can we do today to be more whole? And how do we stay in community? Because at the end of the day, no matter how you were born, like I say this all the time, I didn't have a choice that I was born almost 6 foot Caucasian with hair that I dye. It's not the right color. What I do have a choice is to see you as the beautiful, courageous woman you are, going through this wow loss that just hits us. And how do we encourage others to lean in and say, you matter, you're worthy, and you're enough?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Even like I've been seeing, throughout this month, especially, right? Like all
yeah,
these prevention efforts and uh there's family members who like a distant family who lost a son just a year ago. Um, my brother was 41, just a few years older than me, and this family member's son was similar in age. I don't think he was 40 yet, and they're waving signs and like there are so many stories we tell ourselves
mhm,
inside that really, like, if you change the narrative with one truth of, oh, I do matter, like I do belong here.
yeah,
um like you never know when someone needs to hear that.
yeah. I was on a call with some of our coaches day before yesterday, and they were all talking about, burnout and resilience and mental health. And I paused for a moment and I said, hey, one thing that we do have to take into consideration, because it is becoming more mainstream and there's more conversations around neurodivergence, you know, having a neurodivergent brain, also, when you don't understand and you're not diagnosed, maybe you don't want a diagnosis because you don't want it on paper. I have some colleagues who are also certified coaches like me, and they don't want a medical diagnosis because they just don't want it on the record. Cool. But how do you recognize that the narrative, and if you throw in imposter syndrome, I'm not good enough, I'm not valued, I'm not enough. It's been my story most of my life. I can't possibly do the thing, even though I've done it 73 times. Like,
Yeah.
it's coming back into that body in the moment in time, breathing, to your point, and saying, what is the story I'm creating in my head? All around Brene Brown's, you know, body of work around, really being vulnerable and saying, what are my unique strengths? What are my what do I have to offer? And is the story like sometimes I have to go have a conversation with my husband. I'm like, I need to process this. I think I'm off the ranch because I'm neurodivergent and I know it.
Mhm.
I'm creating this crazy story. I'm literally going to go on stage like Brene Brown's TED Talk in 15 minutes. And I'm talking myself into like some crazy town. Pause.
Yeah.
What's going on in that moment? And what support do I need? Well, I need a Claire, Captain Claire, to come on with me with Zoom.
Yep.
I need
100%.
right. We all need a Captain Claire from
Yes.
duh. I need my favorite cup that glows in the dark, right? Like, I need you to tell me I see you and you can do the thing.
Oh
Sometimes it's
yeah.
something small like that. Yeah.
And I can say from this side of friendship with you that I do see that, right? And I can see it so clearly for you. And that still like is is hard for us to hear on our own side. Everybody can be telling us, that they see it. And I think I'm learning to get better at receiving that.
Mhm.
And um just what comes to mind is like The Go Giver, this book I read a couple times a year. And one of the last point of, I'm going to say it wrong, the laws of stratospheric success, right? Is that you have to receive
Yeah.
as much as you can
As you
give.
give, because we're denying the gift that
My
is
kids are
coming
on their
to
way
us.
out
We
of
love
school. So,
kids. It's like, hi, kids. This is our life. And if that bothered me, I'm the wrong friend for you. Uh, yeah, I mean, when you recognize that the ability to sit in our heart and in our body and say, thank you for that compliment. Thank you for bringing me a drink. Like really accepting that affirming feedback. Sure, I can take constructive feedback all day long, but like really the healing part that we have to do to accept the qualitative feedback, it's different because the brain understands scale of 1 to 5. I'm a 3. That means I'm average, right? 1 to 10, I got a 7. I got some opportunities. If you say I'm courageous and strong and resilient, and my body sits there and says, huh, what do I do about that? I have to embody that at the heart level. And if I'm neurodivergent, which I am, and no matter where you are on the spectrum, it doesn't make a difference whether that's a politically correct thing or not to say. You have to figure out how to take that in and embody that. And then not, to your point, not create a story in your head. Like my brother who passed away lived almost his entire life thinking that he had murdered, not, I don't know how else to say it, but pulled the blanket out from underneath our 6 week year old brother who passed away before I was born and killed him. Like to live with that narrative, the generation above us dealt with all of the traumatic things with alcohol, drugs, not talking about it, pushing things underneath the rug because we had a police officer in our family. The family just chose not to talk about any of that. So flash forward, he didn't even find out, my brother, that this happened until like 10 years ago when one of my cousins and I were in a bar in Reno and she told me what happened. And I was like, wait, what? Like all the time we thought, you know, my mom had shaken my brother Martin and he passed away, shaken baby syndrome. And that's not the story that my brother Jerry lived with. So his entire life, he really had he didn't have support. And then before that, that generation numbed. And before that, my dad's dad committed suicide at 15 and he was put into an orphanage. So if you think about all the generational trauma passed on, we have to stop it. We have to like lean in and say, how do we recognize what's happening? And how do we pause and say, wait, this, we can't carry this generational trauma forward. We have to stay in community. We have to see each other as humans. We have to love each other for what we do bring and soften our edges by getting whatever support it is. So,
Yeah, and we can't get that support if we don't say we need it.
yeah, it's reach out. I mean, I feel like for me, Mental Health Awareness Month, Suicide Prevention Month, when Twitch passed away, died by suicide, I was devastated. I had to pull my freaking car over. I was hyperventilating. He was such a kind man. Here in the US, if you don't know him, you can look him up. Like, he was a dancer and a dad and had everything going for him, and gone the next day. So we never know when someone else is going through. We have to recognize the signs. I feel like going back to, when you and I started, it's like we can't do this shit all over ourselves as siblings. We have to, like, recognize signs and stay in connection and encourage them to get the support they need. And we still have no control over what others do.
Yeah. And I think that's talk about generational weight that we carry from generation to generation to take responsibility for what we can and and not carry the things that are not ours to carry, which sometimes feels like you're letting go, like you're giving up, like you're abandoning, you know. Um, to be totally transparent, my brother's suicide put me into a world I had been purposely detaching myself from for the last 20 years. And I walked into that world different because I had detached and done the work. And at the same time, like, it was it is heartbreaking, and now it's groundbreaking because there's new ground being broken inside of this space relationally that would never have happened otherwise. And the hardest part is wanting to just have solutions for all the issues and have answers for all the questions and be able to take care of everybody who's hurting because of it. And we can't.
Yeah, it's like I shared with you, when I worked at a university, my student intern came to me and said, I'm being harassed. And I said, you need to own your voice and share that with HR. Flash forward, she did. They put our director on administrative leave. They did an investigation, and then he hung himself in his garage and left a note for his family. And to your point about what can we do and how do people behave after, and what are all the layers, you know, inside of us, around us. I just remember how difficult that time was for everyone, and I felt for the family. And then I think employers too at times don't know how to show up and need training and education of how to support everyone, because I got treated so poorly in that environment after. Everybody was blaming me. And I was like, wait, what? Our student intern was being sexually harassed.
Yeah.
It was her right to share. And I felt I felt for the family, for their loss. But I lost a confidant, a boss, a friend. And, all the mental space, that the trauma, the unhealedness, and like I love what you said, heartbreaking and groundbreaking, because as we start to like chip away and peel things, I said to my husband the last probably 12 months specifically, I just been pouring alcohol on every wound I have and doing all the hard work. And I'm so grateful that I am in the space I'm in now, that I can really recognize the growth and the affirmation of what I do have to offer others and offer myself first, to your point, right? Like we have to, it seems logical to put the oxygen mask on
It's
yourself first.
I've been doing a lot of flying lately, and I do pay attention every time. And I've noticed one airline will walk to every aisle that has a child and tell the parent, just a reminder, put yours on first and then theirs. And I'm like, I really appreciate that because it is not instinctual, but we cannot keep someone else alive if we are not
Yeah.
breathing.
And like not a shameless plug for Wild, and a shameless plug for Wild, that, really Rob's entire body of work has been around working towards wholeness. I'm going to be a work in progress my entire life. I know that, I accept that, because as each layer deepens and this comes off and I let go of this and I let go of that and I add some new tools to my toolbox,
Yeah.
it's going to make me more whole. And I believe in faith, and I believe I'm here to serve. I'm an instrument to serve others.
Yeah.
And as long as I'm glorifying the God I believe in, then I'm serving my purpose here on earth. And when my purpose is done, I understand it will be a bigger call than mine. And so
Yeah.
when we don't give ourselves, and again, going back to the generational, you know, way of being, if you don't recognize that all the generations before us potentially didn't teach us things that were healthy, like to ask for support. And now it's so mainstream about therapy, is there's nothing wrong with having a therapist, having an ICF trained coach, having a conversation about, man, it was my intention today. I have a text, family text with two of my siblings, and my intention today was get out of bed, do the things on my calendar, and love and appreciate myself. Sometimes just getting out of bed is a check the box, because then you get the dopamine hit,
Mhm.
and I'm gonna do the thing. So
Guess what? You can put make your bed on there and check it off too, and that feels really great. Shameless plug for make your bed.
yeah, make your bed, drink water within 30 minutes, set your intentions. So, there's so much work out there and so much information about, here, you got to follow this plan. No, you got to
Mm-mm.
create your own operating manual, especially if the generations before you dealt with things like mine did, completely unhealthy.
Yeah.
Sure, there are lots of beautiful pockets of my childhood, which I'm sure you have the same thing. And I'm sure there's journey with your brother that you're going to always remember. There are positive parts of what happened as you were brought up. And there's things that we have to recognize that we see in ourselves, maybe, that we have to let go of because it's not serving us or the next gen. So setting intentions for your day can be set at night or in the morning. There's no right or wrong way of doing it. It's you have to choose and give yourself agency. I learned that word from Rob. Agency
Yeah.
means I can lead my own life and ask
Yeah.
you, Sabbath, to check in on me today because I'm off the ranch. I'm not today.
Yeah. Yes, I regularly text and be like, this is what is going on. If it's a friend that I just am like, pray now, or I am not okay. It's a hot mess over here. Like, because just knowing someone knows is huge for my heart. And um And like you were saying, it made me think of this journey of leading ourselves and transformation and aspiring to wholeness shifts. It's not like a one you set on course and then you just do that for years to come. You are changing, and so what you need changes too, and your circle changes. It gets bigger and smaller as it needs to. Yeah. And you need regular hours of therapy in the week, or you're okay and you check in. Like, I need regular hours right now. Lots of them.
Yeah, and what you said something that is really important. It's about who's around you and what you need in the season that you're in. I thoroughly believe in reason, season, lifetime. Some humans serve a reason, a season or a lifetime. And I feel like we have to appreciate each moment of learning and those individuals pouring into us because, you know, the future comes to us. And if we're not paying attention, it goes right past us. And those micro moments in time really do offer us more learning um, about ourselves. And yeah, I mean, still constructive feedback. I love it. And sometimes it stings a little, like my son Jeremy says, he'll be like, "Do you want some Neosporin?" Um, and that's the growth opportunity and the mental health space for sure of, oh, okay, self-care can look like anything. Sure, it can be the traditional things that we see on all the social platforms, bubble bath and spatials. And at times it really means texting someone, making your bed, getting a glass of water, recognizing that the generations before us may not have taught us about self-care and the importance of that. It may have been work 30 years and do your thing and retire versus pausing and having work-life harmony so your bucket can be filled, the oxygen mask again, to then pour into those that are around us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Kat.
Thanks, love.